The way I live my life is I have the universe is my CEO and the pilot of my aeroplane, and I am merely the passenger. And every day I speak to Source, what is it that you would have me do today? What is it you would have me go? If there's someone on my path that I need to say a message to or to help guide me to do that. Everything else as to where the money is going to come from, where the solutions for my health are going to come from, as to which friends I should be around, as to which person I should be in a relationship with, they make all those decisions and guide me. I don't need the government or television ads to tell me what I need to take and what I need to do.
Welcome back to Unbroken Chain. I am Maura James, as always, hosting you here. And this week we are hanging out with Maria Benardis. Maria and I had such a beautiful conversation in New York City earlier this month. I have tremendous respect for her and her perspective because she's earned every second of it. She's lost everything in her life, and when she talks about what it's meant for her to become whole on the other side of that, it's because she has deeply confronted all the other options, including taking herself out of the picture. And there's been a lot of suicide in the field lately, certainly in my extended universe, particularly among artists and musicians. I've been feeling that really deeply. And I guess I understand. I know how dark it is for a lot of people right now, for our species collectively. And even though I understand it, God, it hurts. And it's so hard to see people, particularly the musicians and the artists, who bring a lot of meaning into other people's lives, sometimes life-saving meaning, struggling so much to feel it in return. And if you are someone who is making things, who is fighting to make sense of all that is so hard to hold right now, I love you. Please hold each other close, and please share the things that are working for you. Share the resources that do keep you connected. I mean, that stuff is free. It's something we can do wherever we are. And I think it's vital at this time that we crowdsource the healing that we all desperately need on an individual and a collective scale. That's part of why I'm having these conversations, because I continually learn about the depths of human imagination and generosity and goodness. And I need those reminders to feel connected to the human project in the face of suffering and disconnection. So Maria has some really concrete tools. She founded Greekalicious, which specifically is about food and what she puts into her body and helping other people make shifts that will help them feel better, body, mind, and spirit. And that's really connected to her deep personal investigation into ancient Greece and the modalities that the philosophers of the time were discovering and living. And the way that she's brought that into her life is a really powerful example of what it means to listen to your innate voice and instincts, and to stop giving the power away to the institutions around us that claim to have our highest good in mind, but that are in fact, at the end of the day, corporations that want to extract resources from us for the large part, which is a sad state of affairs. But the good news is that there is incredible wisdom about how we can take back control for our own health and healing. And that's a big job. It requires oftentimes a pretty deep refiguring and reevaluation of life. Maria has done that. She went from the very pinnacle of success by one social definition to now making it her life's work to empower people to live whole, healthy lives. And that's a transmission that I'm just really excited to share. So with a lot of gratitude, here is chef and food advocate culinary instructor and author Maura Benardis.
I'm first generation Greek. My parents were World War II survivors, so I grew up with all those stories. And I've had a very unusual background. I started off in accounting and then became a tax lawyer, practiced that for over 30 years, and then got sick and tired of dealing with criminals. Also, as a consequence of having a career like that, I got very sick for a number of years. And the doctor said, really, we don't know what's wrong with you, we can't heal you. So that's when my journey of healing began, and I started to search for answers in ancient Greece. And I managed to heal myself. So then I decided to transition out of my career and walk away from it and to move into more food, holistic healing, and really just telling people my story and helping them heal from whatever illness.
When you say working in that line of work made you sick, what do you mean?
Well, I actually got caught up with the whole culture of success being defined by being a partner in a law firm. And as a consequence of having a job like that, you really need to work 7 days a week. So I was working 7 days a week. I did not see my family. I had no social life. I was making amazing money, traveling first class. I had my own driver. I was eating at, fine dining, but I was deeply miserable. I was deeply miserable, unhappy. I'd completely lost myself. I was just consumed by my work, consumed by the people around me and the clients, and really got caught up for a little while in this whole notion that money and position is what identifies me and that makes me a success. And then the ridiculous thing was, my last position, I was on the board of directors of the equivalent of the IRS. So I had the highest position you could possibly have in Australia in tax. I was the youngest board member as well. Everybody else was in their 60s, 70s and so on. So I'd reached pretty high up in a very young age. And I was sitting around there in the board and thinking, I'm so deeply miserable. And my health was suffering at the same time. I was getting lumps. I was in and out of hospital. And they basically said to me, your mother died from cancer, your father died from cancer, expect to die from cancer. But I just was not going to accept that. So the first thing I was guided to do from Source, Universe, God, whatever you want to call it, was that I needed to leave my job.
Wow.
That was one of the central issues and the central causes of my illness was the stress. Get away. It was toxic, negative energy people all day long.
So you just started over.
I did. It was very scary. I kept questioning Source, as you do. Is this what you want me to do? Maybe I heard wrong. You do. You question. You're asked to do something and then we question it, which is not always a good thing to do. And I kept hearing loud and clear, yes, you need to go into food and you need to start writing a book and you need to start doing research. And I kept saying, I don't know how to write this kind of book. I've written 2 tax law books. Tax I can write about, but this I don't know. And I heard very clearly Source saying to me, I'm going to show you. And that's when the book started to fall and I started to discover this way of healing that the ancient Greeks adopted that we were not practicing. And I thought, I need to do this. I need to apply it to myself and see whether it works. What have I got to lose? The doctors just want to keep giving me drugs. They want to keep giving me, surgery and so on. And I don't want to do any of that. I don't want to remove, they were now telling me after removing, lumps on my breast, lumps on my neck, 3/4 of my left lung, they were now saying they want to remove my ovaries. And I just said, this has got to stop. Because very soon I'm going to have scars all over my body and very soon I'm not going to be living. And so that's when I ventured into ancient Greece and read books were falling or books were presenting themselves. And I started to discover this whole new way of healing that they were doing thousands of years ago. And many of them were living to beyond 100 and healthy. And I said to myself, I want to live beyond 100. I want to be healthy. So I used myself as a guinea pig and went back and just started to practice everything that they were saying.
Wow. So where were you discovering this lineage?
A lot of it, I started off by reading Hippocrates, a lot of other ancient Greek therapists like Theophrastus, Dioscorides. I also read ancient Greek philosophers, so Socrates, Sophocles, Plato. Also, people don't read books with attention, because if you read a lot of these ancient Greek philosophers, they actually had healing wisdom throughout their stories. So even some of the comedies that were written, throughout them was healing. So I started to pick those sentences and put them together, and then I would not only pray to God in the universe, I would pray to them and say, Hippocrates, what is it that you wanted to say here? You know, speak to me. And then I started to write notes and notes and notes and notes. And then I started to summarize some principles in life that I needed to adopt to get my mind right, because I had a lot of childhood emotional issues. I'd been abused as a child. I hadn't dealt with that. That was causing a lot of my illness. So I learned to heal that.
Well, I'd love to talk to you about that. Part of the reason this project started for me was leaving an abusive relationship and feeling so broken that I just had to go out into the world and learn what healthy love even meant, and realizing that there were things from my childhood that meant that I was seeking out broken models of that as well. Yeah. So how do we learn to trust on the other side of that?
You learn to trust God first and the universe. And then he guides you to the right relationships. So what happens is, because I only put my trust in the universe first, and I did that for my health, I took it out of the hands of the doctors, I took it out of the hands of anybody that was giving me advice, including friends who knew they knew something. We know nothing. You know, as Socrates said, all I know for sure is I know nothing. It's such a profound quote. So I learned that the only trust I can have is on the one universal energy, and that energy is going to guide me towards the people I need to trust, and is going to guide me towards the relationships I need to trust. And that is how I make my decisions. I make my decisions by first going to Source and saying, Source, I have this decision to make. I'm listening. Should I say yes? Should I say no? Should I take it on? Should I listen to that doctor? Should I listen to that friend? And then I hear the voice inside of me coming out, and I hear either a yes or a no. Then I trust it, and I take action. And that's the important thing. People do have that inner voice. Call it gut, call it whatever, call it God, universe, but they don't listen to it. And most people that enter relationships that end up in a disaster is because they didn't ask Source to begin with whether they should be in that relationship. And then what Source energy does, it starts ringing alarm bells. So it makes that other person do something, either dishonest, deceitful, whatever, and that's your alarm bell. And you're still not listening. You're still staying in that relationship. Then it has to send a boatload of messages. And the whole thing of the relationship breaking up, it's actually not a breakup. It's the universe protecting you and saying you shouldn't have been in it in the first place, but you were not listening. And this is also the same thing for people's health. People have the answers to their health issues. They know what they are, but they're just not listening. They're putting the trust of their doctor ahead of trusting themselves. And this is why we have an epidemic of health issues. And the moment I took back control of my health and said, yes, I hear you. I thank you for your advice. However, I need to meditate. I need to pray and then so prayer is asking, meditation is listening. So then to listen, and then just by listening, I was told, don't listen to the doctors. You're going to get sick and you're going to get worse. So that's how I was guided to go back to ancient Greece, and that's how I was guided to get that wisdom from our ancient ancestors, because everybody's Greek, we're all one. There's no such thing, I'm Jewish, you're Muslim, I'm African American, I'm whatever. We're all one. So we're all Jewish, we're all Muslim, we're all this. I think it's delusional for anybody to think that they belong to one denomination or one country. And that was what they preached in ancient Greece, we're all one, no one's separate. And that's when I discovered different things. They practiced different therapies for the mind. There was particular food that I call high energy food that they ate. What do I mean by therapies? They were the first to heal in ancient Greece using music. So I tapped into different vibrational frequencies of music and listened to that, and it was the vibrational frequency of cancer. Okay, which helps it shrink. There was different foods that I ate. When I look at the diet that they feed people in hospitals nowadays, I'm horrified. You're feeding people with cancer sugar and high corn fructose syrup. I mean, are you kidding me? That feeds cancer. So you're killing people. You're not helping them. So there was a lot of things that I discovered that was in food that I wasn't aware was in food, that I needed to avoid. So I was eating things I thought were healthy, were not healthy. But then there was other things. I had to learn forgiveness. I had to learn, trust, because I didn't trust anybody around me. Now I trust people, but first I consult with my source as to whether I should trust that person. Does that make sense? So there's a lot of things people can be doing. And I think the important thing that I aim to do to help people is to empower them with this wisdom to help themselves. I don't believe you can help someone by making them dependent on you. That is delusional. That is the old way of helping people. That is, I want your money and I don't care. Really, because the only person that can heal someone and help someone is you can only heal yourself. When people call themselves a healer, I say, what do you heal? Because the only power you really have is to heal yourself, or really tap into that energy within you and pass it on to the other person that they're able to heal themselves.
So when you say that you have a message to share, is that your message?
My message is basically that we all have the power within us to make the right decisions, to heal ourselves, to have anything that we want in our life, provided it's also the universe's and God's will. And that all we need to do is to connect better to ourselves and get a better antenna to connecting to source to get the information. And most people's antennas and their wiring is just not wired right. So all I say to people is you have the ability to do that. What I do is try to help you to get those wires connected. It's like having a bad Wi-Fi connection. Most people do not have a good Wi-Fi connection to source. That's the thing. They let their daily life, they let their daily issues just get in the way. And all I do is objectively look at that person, and I can see where the issues are. And then what I do is I work with them in terms of, getting those wires connected again. It's like a tree. If it doesn't have the right root system, it's not going to grow. It's the same as people. Most people don't have the right root systems. Or they have particular people with energies around them that's not helping them thrive. So it's like a matter of presenting that to them. And really, sometimes we have to make decisions and really get rid of people in our lives. I'm sorry. And that sometimes means family. Some family members can be really destructive. Just because someone is your mother or your father, there's no obligation that you have to have them in your life 24/7 and allowing them to bring all that negativity and whatever. And it may be a matter of you learn to manage it and accept them for who they are, or if it's so bad and they're being abusive, it may be you need to distance. So at the end of the day, we have the power in our hands. We have free will to make the right decisions and to live the life that we want. I believe, and I've come to the conclusion, that everything in life is a choice. And that's been probably the most profound thing I learned in my life, because I blamed God, I blamed the universe, I blamed people for bad relationships, I blamed God for health. Oh, why did you make me ill? And really, at the end of the day, when I look back and I finished my healing journey, the only person I had to blame was myself. because every decision I made was a choice. Okay, I went through the childhood abuse, but it was a choice not dealing with it. It was a choice not forgiving my father. It was a choice not forgiving my stepmother. And that there were things that I could do as soon as I became an adult to deal with it. Instead of turning to drugs, instead of being a nasty person and being angry with people, which is what a lot of people choose. They get angry with people, and it's like there's no need. Whereas really they're angry with themselves, and they're just projecting. Yeah, we're all here on an assignment. Everybody has a contract and an assignment. Everybody has a purpose or purposes. So, for example, I realized in my life I had many purposes, which led to my big purpose. Okay, and I had to go through those. I had contracts to go through the abuse, to go through the illness, so I can better understand people. I then realized, well, why did I waste all these years getting degrees in accounting and tax? I'm not even doing it anymore. But they were also purposes I had to fulfill, because now they're helping me with my business, to understand contracts, to understand figures, so that people with my bigger purpose would not be taking advantage of me. And therefore, I met some really influential people that are going to help me with my cause, which ultimately is to set up a healing center that has all this wisdom, that's a not-for-profit that people can go to. So I needed to meet these high-profile people. I needed to go through the illness to discover this wisdom, to be able to put it in this center to help people. So do you see, I had many purposes, but some of those finished. And then a new one came up. But now I know that I'm on my ultimate last purpose, which is to preserve the wisdom from ancient Greece, which is linked up to all other countries. It's not just unique to ancient Greece. And to put it in one center before I die, so that people have access to it. And it needs to be a not-for-profit. And guess what? I know how to set up a not-for-profit because I did tax and accounting. So do you see that hasn't gone to waste? That accumulated knowledge is still helping me with my source. Going through the illness, I know what worked and what didn't work. I understand the challenges for people. That it's easy for someone to say, be positive, but how do I become positive? You're telling me to trust. Well, how do I do that? It's the tools are all going to be there. You know, the therapies are going to be there. What works for one person may not work for another person. We're all different. There's not a one-size-fits-all. The medical profession is doing a one-size-fits-all to cancer. Everybody's trying to do a one-size-fits-all. There's no such thing as one-size-fits-all. We're all different. We're all complex. So programs need to be designed to help people for that person. Needs to be customized. And even when you look at this ridiculous thing called diets, oh my God, anybody that writes a book called Diet and they're talking about food, you should just do a ritual where you burn it. Because really diet is the ancient Greek word for a way of life. It's an ancient Greek word which means a way of life. Food is one component. If you are just looking at food and you're calling it diet, I'm sorry, you have just ridiculed the father of medicine, Hippocrates, who came up with the word. And he made it very clear that it's not just about food. It's about the mind. So if you're not trying to tackle your diet using both those components, you're really wasting your time. And any solutions you get from that book are temporary. So, so we have so much to learn. We live in a world where, wisdom's been taken and twisted for money-making purposes. And people are lost and they're looking to these books and whatever, and really they're just being misguided.
Yeah, I was struck when you said that people don't have the roots, the healthy roots, and even for yourself to not know necessarily how to process. Like, I don't necessarily see in modern culture that we're given the tools to have the healthy tree of life.
That's deliberate. Because if you look at the education system, and I can vouch for this because I have multiple degrees, I was trained at university that this is the way it is, this is the system is, and this is the way it's done. If I tried to veer out of that and show a different perspective, I was put back into line. We live in a system of control. The government is controlling our food. The government is controlling our thought process. Television is controlling our thought process. Every second ad is about some pill. Pop this pill and you'll get relief from this. I'm telling you, you do not need to pop those pills. There are free ways that you can get healing and not have to pop pills or go to a doctor. I'm not saying to people don't go to doctors. Yes, I had to go to a doctor initially. But I'm saying there are things you could be doing alongside the doctor to heal yourself and get control back of your life. So really we're brought up in a world where we are controlled. And this is why most people buy into that, and that's why they've lost control of their lives. Really, you don't need the government, you don't need those pills, you don't need the doctors, you don't need any of that to control you. The way I live my life is I have the universe is my CEO and the pilot of my aeroplane, and I am merely the passenger. And every day I speak to Source, what is it that you would have me do today? What is it you would have me go? If there's someone on my path that I need to say a message to or to help guide me to do that. Everything else as to where the money is going to come from, where the solutions for my health are going to come from, as to which friends I should be around, as to which person I should be in a relationship with, they make all those decisions and guide me. I don't need the government or television ads to tell me what I need to take and what I need to do. And that is what's called an enlightened way to live. And when you live your life that way, you have total peace and you find nothing around you will affect you. Even if there's a flood going on, you're not affected. You know, it was interesting, you know, about a year ago, we had a fire. I lived not far from here, on 110th Street and 5th Avenue, and there was an explosion next door, and we had a fire and we lost everything. So everything I possibly owned, I lost. But that was okay. I mean, I gave everything away in Australia to come to New York. I lost everything, and I just stood there looking at everything in ashes, through no fault of my own. It was just next door neighbour, gas leak, not attended to, 6 o'clock in the morning, they decide to cook explosion. And I looked around and I thought, you know, I could look at this in two ways. I could break down and go into a panic, I've lost everything, I've got nothing, and start crying and be devastated, and so on. Or I can look at this, that maybe this is part of my cleansing process, and God saying, and the universe saying, you didn't need all this anyway. Really, in this world, we own nothing anyway. So that was a quick realization. And I'm going to look to God and look to Source and say, that's okay, you're going to help me rebuild this. And I'm just going to keep my peace and trust you. So really, at any given point in time, it's all perception. It's how are we going to view this situation? So we can view it as, oh my God, this man left me, I'm so devastated, I'm never going to find anybody. Or I can just, as I've done with all my relationships, I can say, well, this is a good thing that happened because this was not part of my contract. This is not part of my higher purpose of being in the right relationship that's going to nurture me and whatever. And therefore, love and release them, wish them well. Whatever happened, it was an illusion, they were crazy, whatever, doesn't matter, who cares? Bless them. And you know what? I'm going to get myself ready for the next right one. So really, any situation, you can give me any example, there is many ways of looking at it. And it's, again, a choice. How do you choose to see it? I'm not saying to people don't cry. I mean, I have my cry and my little tantrum, but it's 5 minutes, then it stops. It's not like a week and 2 weeks and I'm going to stay in bed and I'm not going to get out. So really everything is a perception. How do you view things? How do you view what's happening? It's not happening to you, it's happening for you.
You sound like somebody that has no room for resentment or regret.
No, and I can tell you, especially here in New York, I've had the most tests in my life, I've had many people abuse and use me, lie to me. I've had it all. I've experienced it all. But I have learned to have my little cry, get back up and say, this is happening to strengthen me. What is it trying to teach me? And what I found was that I went off course and started to rely on people for things and trust people for things, and that's why these things were happening to me. So when I then turned back to, I'm looking to the universe and God for answers and guidance, I found my peace back. And then I learned, oh my God, that was all an illusion to teach me that I was off the track. So I had it together in Australia. I come here, and because I know no one, I'm trying to sort of find people to help me. Really, I didn't need any of them to help me. All I needed was to look to Source. And Source was going to hook me up with the right people and hook me up with the right work, and really gave me great material for my next book. So I'm very grateful. So all this is going in my next book, because people are going to be able to relate to this. They're going to say, oh my God, I had this happen to me. I had that happen to me. So I take it all as experience to put in, to help, it made me a better person. And I learned to forgive very quickly. I don't keep grudges. I don't keep resentment. A lot of people don't understand it. Angry people that are screaming at me for no reason don't understand why I don't get angry. But to me, it's such a waste of energy. And really, there is in so much pain, why should I add to it? That is an attention for love. So what do? I just give them love. And then you find they calm down. And it's like, anybody, whether someone's ill, whether they're in pain, whether they're angry, whether they're screaming, it's all a call for love. That's what we're here for. We're here to love, to be loved, and to project love. That's our primary purpose. And we either do it through our work, and everybody's work, that's their job. Doesn't matter what you do, you collect rubbish, project love what you're doing. If you're a doctor, do the same thing. It doesn't matter what job you do. That's what you're here for. And if we all did that and focused on that and didn't focus on other people's business that's really not our business, this world wouldn't be in this mess.
It sounds like we also have to become aware of how within the job that we're doing, we're also part of these systems that can be abusive and oppressive.
Yeah, as the ancient Greeks used to say, we are all one. What you do in your life impacts everybody, including the trees and the animals. And another thing that was very revealing to me, they used to say, you are but a speck in the universe. So we're still part of it. You might be a speck. But anything that you do, your energy, we are all energy. Energy is an ancient Greek word, energia. The ancient Greeks were the first to work out that everything is energy. This cup has been made from the earth energy. Everything, the cars, the books, everything is energy. It's vibrating at a different level, but it's all energy. So in whatever work we do, in whatever decision we make, we are affecting everybody around us and everything. I mean, look at all the floods, look at all the droughts. That is all as a consequence of our individual energy, and as a collective, it becomes so strong that it has the power to destroy. And if people knew that, they would spend less time being angry, less time being greedy, like all that stuff that's negative energy. It's such a waste of energy. I mean, I don't understand how people just don't get exhausted from it. I mean, I'm just exhausted seeing them caught up in this. So any job that we do has a consequence. And this is why I also worked out pretty quickly that in my corporate jobs, I didn't believe I was giving out good energy. Because initially I was helping rich people get richer. There wasn't an equal distribution of that money then going to help homeless people. So the thing is, I was contributing to that negative energy. Also, we need to start taking responsibility in the work that we're doing. Just because you're paid to do something, yeah, that's great, but what are you paid to do? What energy are you projecting? Are you helping people? Are you doing harm to people? And, and this is where I see a lot of these food companies, needs to start taking responsibility for the ingredients they're putting, because anybody that works for these food companies that are killing people, and yes, they are killing people, let's not be delusional about it. Really, the people working for those companies are contributing to that cause. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's the energy they're giving out. So what energy is going to come back into their life? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So if you're working for a company like that and things are not going well in your life, you may want to start with your job.
Mm-hmm. So what is your relationship to food? How is that part of the sort of bigger diet in the Greek sense?
Well, as Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine and medicine thy food. The mind is the essence of life, so there's the two connections there. I found that one component of my illness, and although there was physical illness, 99% of my illness was my mind. What people don't realize is that 99% of the population is suffering from mental illness. 99%. Just because you don't have a physical ailment doesn't mean your mind's healthy. Look around us, 99% of the people are suffering from mental illness of some sort. Wow. If you're thinking negatively, if you have no peace in your life 24/7, you have a mental illness. You have something that needs attention there. So essentially the food connection was that was one component I needed to heal. I was eating, but I was eating things that were not nurturing my physical body. Uh-huh. So there are two components to food. There's the mind food, and then there's the physical food. Mm-hmm. So really the mind dictates the mouth. So the first component I got right was the mind, and then the mind directed me to the right food. So if someone's not eating right, it's because their mind needs reprogramming and help. So just by me going to a supermarket and looking at someone's shopping trolley, I can tell you what's going on in their mind.
Wow.
I can show me your shopping trolley and I'll tell you exactly where you're at. So that's why I studied the ancient Greek diet, and I wanted to know, why were these people, even with none of these technologies in medicine, why were they living so long? And what I found was that one component was the mind, second, food is medicine. I studied the food and I realized that every food that we eat, including water, has a vibrational frequency. So every day we need to eat and drink things that are high in vibration. So in my books, I outlined what the low vibrational foods are and what the high vibrational foods are. When I started to delve into food, I realized that a lot of the processed food was really low vibrational, killing us food. And then I realized that a lot of the fresh fruit and vegetables were also killing us and killing me and causing cancer and so on. So we may be looking at two apples, but they're not both healthy. One is a certified organic one and has nothing on it. It doesn't have wax. It doesn't have all the chemical sprays. Yes, that's high vibrational frequency. Then we look at the conventional apple. It has toxic wax that your body cannot digest, that will eventually turn into some sort of cancer or illness. And it has 20-something pesticides on it. Pesticide means to kill. So what does that apple do? Contributes to something in your body. Sometimes it may not be physical, sometimes it's emotional. When you eat this food, it also changes your chemical imbalance. So that's when I started to develop my own diet that I consumed, that helped me heal and gave me the energy, but also helped clear my mind from chemicals so I could connect to source. Because another reason why a lot of people are not connecting to the higher source is because they're eating and drinking water from the tap and so on that has chemicals that dumbs you down and causes a chemical imbalance in your mind that you cannot connect with source. So to connect with source, you need to purify the body and purify the mind. And it's a mind, body, spirit approach. And only when you adopt those three, as they did in ancient times, food being one, which is the body, I mean, along with exercise, of course, can you really connect. So that's when my journey from healing from illness took a mind, body, spirit approach. And only when you focus on those three components can you find not just health, but peace. Peace. That's what we ultimately want in our life, peace, isn't it? So you can't just tackle it from thinking positive. You know, if your body's not well and your mind's not well, you're not going to think well. And if you're not thinking well, it's a catch-22, your body is not going to be well. So you have to tackle all three at the same time.
Do you work at all with the accessibility piece? Because I feel like I have the sense that, at least in the way society's set up, it can be expensive, just number one, to eat well. Is that true?
I actually don't believe that, and I learned that here in New York. Especially because I was earning zero income. And then I was earning very, little income and really had to learn the notion of survival, because prior to that, in my work, I'd worked very hard to get to where I was, but I was earning a lot of money and money was not an issue. I could dine, I could eat wherever I wanted to. It's a matter of shopping smartly. So, for example, if you focus on getting fruit and vegetables and beans and pulses and things like that, it is not expensive at all. So what is expensive is the meats and things like that. So what I learned from studying the ancient Greeks is most of them were vegan and vegetarian. What I'm finding is people are malnutrition. So they have to eat a lot of chicken to get the nutrition. Whereas you can buy a small portion of organic chicken and get more nutrition out of that than having a whole chicken.
Wow.
This is why people are putting on weight. It's their fault, but it's not their fault. And I'll tell you why I think it's not their fault. Because they're eating food that think it's healthy, which is the fast food, the unhealthy fast food. They're not getting the nutrition, and their body's saying you need to eat, you need to eat. And they're still eating the same food, and they're malnutrition. Where if they had a little bit of a certified organic chicken or meat or whatever, they would need to eat less, meaning their bill would be less. It would cost them less. So the diet that I've adopted is the ancient Greek one was really vegan or fruitologous. They had people that just ate fruit. People don't realize that fruit and vegetables contain high protein. This illusion that we need to have meat and chicken to get protein, I'm sorry, is just something that those industries are advertising to sell. You do not need to. You look at our makeup, we're not made. I'm not saying to people don't eat it. Eat it, but eat it in moderation, nothing in excess, as they said on the Oracle of Delphi. Also to limit the pain in this world, because we are just killing way too many animals and again introducing negative energy and pain. So have it, and have it as they did in ancient times to celebrate. So they were celebrating a wedding. So it was not every day. It was not every day. So yes, I believe you can eat healthy and organic on a budget. I do help out families. For example, I've helped families living in, East Harlem, very poor, lots of children, and their bill has been halved. And they said, Maria, we spent more money eating all this McDonald's and whatever else. And with the same amount of money that we spent on that, you have shown us how to shop and create meals at home and freeze some of these meals, leftovers, and we're spending less with money left over. Not only that, we're spending less because I've come down on my blood pressure tablets. So you see, you have to look at the total costs. So yes, I believe it's possible because I've helped other people do it.
Wow. Thank you for that. That's really concrete. Yeah. When you're talking about looking in people's shopping carts, are there some red flags that you feel like if people are just starting out and wanting to shift that are good places to start looking?
The first thing I say to people is take an interest in reading the labels. People look at the packaging and there's the word natural. Usually those are the products that I avoid. Because normally when you look at what natural means, they have high corn fructose syrup, lots of sugar, lots of canola oil, lots of vegetable oil, things that are really low vibrational frequency and that have contributed to this epidemic of cancer. Cancer, in my view, is anything we can't identify what it is, we'll just label with cancer. That's all cancer is. It's anything we don't know what it is. And I find they're buying things thinking they're healthy and they're not. So the first thing is read labels. Secondly, I would opt out of buying anything, whether it be dairy, whether it be poultry, that is conventional. In other words, if it doesn't have certified organic, I avoid it like the plague. And unfortunately, 99% of the eating establishments, that's what you're eating. So I avoid it. I don't even have it when I go out on the menu, unless someone's ordered a set menu and I have to, and I'll just have a little bit for the sake of sort of joining in, or not at all. These are very toxic. They inject them with arsenic. They put them in chlorine. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you the chemicals that they put on this stuff and that they feed these animals to get them very quickly on the shelf. These are killing people. If you must have that conventional stuff, have very little, and then focus on having other things such as an organic juice, smoothie, good fruit and vegetables to try and flush most of it out and clean the body. So I say to people, try and stick to a vegan or vegetarian diet, and then if you must have meat, poultry, seafood, have it in very limited portions. Another thing I say to people is, if you see anything that says farmed fish, especially tilapia, stay clear. This is seafood that has been fed, you wouldn't even want to know. A lot of it comes from China and Thailand and countries which the hygiene, if you actually did a Google search and search what they fed them, you wouldn't even touch it. So these are basic things. Read the labels. Avoid anything that you can't read. If you don't understand what a number is, don't buy it. So anything that your grandmother doesn't recognize, don't buy it. Try and get organic wherever possible. Opt for the organic, even if it's 5 cents difference. That's an investment in your health now, so you don't have to buy that medication later. You can either pay for it now, or you can pay for it later in hospitals and medication. Really, it's a choice.
Wow.
They're probably my 3 rules. Go organic as much as you can. Keep away from anything farmed, and read your labels. Avoid anything that you don't recognize.
Thank you. Yeah. So in your journey, when you left that industry and you said no more to the doctors, did you stop all kind of Western medicine at that point and just focus on your diet?
I did.
Wow.
I did, which my friend said I was very stupid, because I also had asthma. So I took all my puffers and threw them in the bin. It was also at a time where all the medication, because I was also on steroids and a lot of others, because they couldn't do surgery on me, I was too skinny. So I'd put on so much weight, I could hardly walk from the weight I'd put on. So I was going through a series of things, and I threw everything out, and I said, if I'm going to follow this ancient wisdom, I need to do it properly. So I'm going to totally deny conventional medicine. I'm not going to see my doctors. I'm going to refuse to follow anything that they say. And I was guided to do that. And I trusted Source, that it was going to get me through. And basically it worked out for me. And then I went back to my doctors and they said, you haven't come back, you didn't take any of this stuff, and so on and so on. And I said, no, but I said, I feel I'm healed, I'm well. So we did all the tests, ultrasound, scans, whatever. And they said, we don't know what you did, but everything's disappeared, everything's gone. And you're looking like younger. You know, you're looking like so much younger, you've lost the weight. And when I started to tell them what I was doing and some of the therapies, for example, for my lungs, I was doing salt therapy, which is what Hippocrates used to do to clear the toxins. Well, they thought I'd lost the plot, you know, and that was okay. I was prepared to accept criticism, that I was like in whoopee land or whatever. But at the end of the day, whatever I did worked, so I didn't care what they thought. You know what I'm trying to say? It's like, what do I care what you think? I've healed myself, and that was something you could not do for me. Mm-hmm. So if you want to think I'm crazy, go right ahead. But I'm a very happy, healthy, crazy person. And this is the problem with society and the world. We live in a world where people think conventional medicine is the only way to go, and if you don't follow it, there's something wrong with you. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think that there are other things you could be doing to supplement that, and eventually you won't need to rely on them. you'll be guided to eat the right food. You'll be guided to do the right things. It's so anyway. So that's the way I live my life. I don't rely on the medical system. I don't rely on the government system. I don't rely on people. I only rely on those people that God guides me to collaborate with in some way, or they may have a message for me. But I don't rely on them for my healing or my solution to my problems. That's just so. It's the old way that's failing everybody. And I say to people, keep relying on it, but how's that serving you? Are you at peace? No. Well, why are you not trying something different?
It takes a lot of bravery, I think, or getting to sort of a rock bottom where the system has failed so much that people are forced to look around. But I think that's happening universally, like you're saying.
I think for me it was rock bottom. I had to reach rock bottom to realize that really the source of answers is just one source, and that is to look up. When you look at anything else or anybody else, you're looking down. And that's why all the ideas and everything that happens are failing, because we're looking down, not up. That's the thing. And I think we need to reach rock bottom to be able to get to that. And everybody reaches it differently. It may be through health, it may be financially, it may be a relationship. We learn those lessons in different ways, different forms. Whatever our journey is, we'll learn it. And I think we need to be kind to ourselves and forgiving of ourselves. I think that was the biggest thing for me, to forgive myself, that it'd taken me so long to learn the lessons, but that was okay. I needed to go through that. And I think what people need to say is, I forgive myself, it's okay, I've reached rock bottom, but the only way from here is up. And the only way to go up is you need to look up.
Was that the beginning of your direct relationship with Source, was in healing, or had you been brought up with that understanding?
Well, it was interesting. I'd been brought up Greek Orthodox, but I just knew that there was something a little bit amiss with my religion. I felt that it was imposing a lot of rules in terms of the only way that you can be forgiven for your sins is you need to go and confess them to your priest. So there was a lot of things, interpretations of the Bible, that I did not agree with. Something was not sitting well with me. So what I decided to do is, although I still am Greek Orthodox and a Christian, I don't prescribe to one religion. I consider myself to be a spiritual person because I feel that religions have destroyed people. They have imposed rules that are archaic. They have imposed ideas to people that are not even in line with the Bible. There is one word, and yet we have so many interpretations, and most of them have been interpreted by men with huge egos. I'm sorry to have to say that. They've been interpreted by egos, not from a perspective of love. And this is why this world is in such a mess. If these religions were doing such a great thing and had all the interpretations correctly, then we wouldn't be in such a mess. So they have to accept responsibility. And one of the failings that I found is that they try to disconnect you from source. They try to say that the only way to God, the only way to the universe, the source, whatever you want to call it, it's all God. I don't care what you call it. They try to say it has to be through us. That's wrong. You don't have to go to church to connect with God. You are the church. You're the temple. He's within you. Speak to him. I speak to him in the morning when I'm brushing my teeth. I speak to him when I'm having a shower. He's accessible 24/7. There's a Wi-Fi connection, but you're letting religion, you're letting people stop that connection. And to be honest with you, I'm so glad I had a religious background. And I might add that my mother was a scripture teacher. Most of the people on my mother's side are nuns, priests, and bishops. So I had the most religious upbringing that anybody could have, and I was raised in this. But I did not agree with the interpretations. I did not agree and prescribe to the fact that we cannot connect to source directly. That I disagreed with. And so therefore, I call myself, yes, I am Greek Orthodox, and I'm proud of that, but I call myself spiritual. So I don't condemn what I've been born into. I embrace it. There's a lot of good things there in the Greek Orthodox faith, but there are a lot of things I don't prescribe to and don't agree. Mm-hmm. And that is that we don't have the power to heal ourselves and that we don't have the power to connect to God. I disagree with those things. We don't need someone to heal us. We have connection to God and He can heal us directly. It does not have to be through another person.
Wow. Thank you. Well, I feel like that's a powerful note to end on. Is there anything we haven't spoken about that you want to
Oh God,
touch on?
I could be here all day. But essentially, I think we've said all, and I think in summary we can say that people are in control of their lives, whether they like to think so or not. They are accessible to the power of all things, Source, Universe, and peace is a choice. Health is a choice. And really, if people can just go home with those words, then they're ready to begin their journey to find that, in whichever way is their path and their journey. And that's really all there is to life, peace and love. And it's accessible to all. It's a choice. It's a choice.
Even people that feel like they're suffering, in the face of external forces.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, because I suffered all of that. Yes. When I was being abused, I was at the hands of adults. I was a child. But, I chose to ask the higher power to help me get through this and eventually get out of it. Mm-hmm. And that happened.
And not perpetuate it yourself.
Exactly. I could have stood there in misery and had the negative thoughts. And I'm not saying that it wasn't bad. It was. I'm not trying to diminish people's pain. Mm-hmm. I feel their pain. I've been through it. But what I'm trying to say is I chose to look at it differently. And how am I going to best get through this? Mm-hmm. What do I need to do to get through this, or to find a way to cope as best as I could while it was happening? Mm-hmm. Because sometimes there are people in situations where, for example, if someone's been raped, at that moment, you cannot get out of that. Mm-hmm. But you have to cope as best you can. And then when you do get out of it, you have to find ways to heal yourself. Mm-hmm. You can't remain in that abusive situation and victim mentality all your life. Mm-hmm. You have to heal yourself. You're a human being that can do that and then thrive and have beautiful relationships and have a beautiful life. Mm-hmm. What I'm saying is I don't want people to be stuck. I was stuck in some situations for a long time, and more so than I should have been. Mm-hmm. And again, it was my choice. I was just, poor me, why did this happen? You're not going to get any answers. Sometimes we're not going to understand why certain things happen to us. Mm-hmm. And there aren't answers. But you know what I've learned to realize now, looking back at everything that happened to me, I am so glad I went through it. Mm-hmm. Because I would be of no use to this world, being depressed, a drug addict, or whatever, and not fulfilling my purpose. We all have a purpose. That incident that happened to you was part of the purpose for you to learn a lesson. And when you are not surrendering and open to learning that lesson, it will keep happening. Those toxic people will still keep coming until you put a stop to it. Make a choice to stop and say, I don't want that anymore. What am I going to do? Or what is it that I need to do to move on from this journey, to stop that and move on to my path of enlightenment, to my path of peace, to my path of bliss. Mm-hmm. Because happiness is an illusion. Bliss is the ultimate of what we're trying to get to.
What is the difference?
Well, bliss is where your love and your happiness is coming from Source, God. Mm-hmm. Happiness is something that's based on someone or something. Like, I need to get this car to be happy. Or if I have that $500, I'm going to be happy. Or if I'm in a relationship with that person, I'm going to be happy. That's an illusion. No person can make you happy. Mm-hmm. That's ridiculous. If you're not happy with yourself and you're entering into a relationship, I'm sorry, it's going to collapse. Mm-hmm. You need to find that. And to find that happiness, it's called bliss. Mm-hmm. That is a source of happiness that comes from one place, and that's the universe. Mm-hmm. and it comes for free. It's accessible to all. The word happiness is really people seeking happiness from materialistic things or the people around them. And you know what? You're never going to find it. You might find it temporarily. You might drink a few glasses of wine and you'll get temporarily happiness there, but you're not going to have that happiness tomorrow morning once you're over the hangover. So these are temporarily. Happiness is a temporary solution. It's like a step towards bliss, but you're not there.
Well, and not to absolve your parents' behavior, but also I think to zoom out and have a little context. Like, it seems like parents that would act that way are people that haven't done this work that you're talking about. So you can see what happens if you don't.
Exactly. Let them be the example of what you don't want to be. And it was really interesting. It took me a long time to forgive my father for what he did to me. But when I did, I came to love him unconditionally.
Whew.
And why I did that is because I understood that he was a wounded child. The same thing had happened to him. He had not healed himself and stayed a victim, and therefore did the same thing that was done to him to me. So this is the result of people that don't make the necessary changes, and they're very small. I'm not talking about big things here. And I chose to make those changes so that I wouldn't be the same ugly person he was and pass on that ugliness to someone else. So I wanted to cut the cord for the rest of my family so that that would not continue for generations to come. Whereas my father chose to remain the same miserable victim and to do what happened to him to everybody else. And if you look at anybody that's angry or doing horrible things to other people and you really analyze them, they're just wounded. They need help, they need love, and they don't know how to get it. I'm not saying we need to run out there and help every single person. Some people are beyond help because they're not open to it. So we've just got to walk away and say, I'm at a different place. I cannot allow you in my life. When you're ready to take your journey and to become a better person and so on, then I'll let you in. But other times, you've got to just let them go, and even if it's family. So I had to let go of my father because he was not going to change. He was going to remain in beauty. However, I forgave him. I blessed him. I still don't understand why he did what he did totally, and why he didn't sort of make the changes in his life to become a better person. But at least I could understand what drove him to do it. Does that make sense? And so we have to learn to let go and just surrender. Too many people are hanging on to stuff from the past. Who cares? Let it go. It's happened. You've got to be present. And if you bring your past into your present, you're never going to reach that bliss. You're not even going to reach temporary happiness. It's a difficult thing. I keep saying let go. I keep saying this and that. But there are tools that you can take on to get to that, to help you forgive. I have to make it very clear to people, my journey was not easy. I felt like I was going to hell and back many days, reaching the lowest points and thinking, I'm not going to get through this. I had attempts at committing suicide. So what I'm trying to say is I've been through all those dark moments. But then I kept looking that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and I need to keep moving forward to that light. That I was entitled to it. I deserved to have that kind of life. So again, you need to value yourself, that you deserve to have that light, to have that bliss, the happiness on the way there and so on. So, and there are ways that you can do it. So I say to people, if I can do it, you can.
I inherited a story from abusive people in my life that was selfish in some way, that that boundaries were selfish, of course, because they would have a prerogative to not have a separation between us. But I think in my healing process, like learning, yes, I suppose it is selfish in the sense that I'm putting myself first, but it's like I can only be effective for myself and for anybody else if I make that choice to make that call.
It's actually the correct word to use. Yes, you are being selfish, but we don't understand what the word means. Selfish we associate as a negative connotation, that it's all about me and I don't care about anybody else. Selfish means to look after self first. So yes, we do have to look after ourselves first. However, not to the detriment of abusing other people and being nasty. When we say looking at ourselves, we have to look after ourselves first in terms of healing, so then we are able to go out and help other people, okay? But society has misread the definition of selfish and associated as someone, as the form of someone that wants to use and abuse everybody else for their purposes. But the real definition of selfish is to heal one's self to be able to help others. So if we're talking about that definition of selfish, yes, you need to be selfish. But if we're talking about the controlled definition, the wrong definition of selfish, which is to go and slash and burn everybody else around you for your purposes, self-serving purposes, then I don't agree with that definition. And it's a matter of which one do you prescribe to?
Well, thank you for doing the work that you do. I see your spirit so clearly out in the world, and I'm really thankful that you've devoted your life force at this point to sharing what you've learned, because I know these have been really hard-earned lessons.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time, and really my wish is that everybody is a beacon of light in this world. Just some people's is dimmed, others is shining bright, and everybody has the potential to shine bright. And it's a matter of just being given, the tools and the wisdom to be able to do so. It's accessible to all.
Thank you all so much for hanging out with us again today. If you want to connect more with Maria, you can find her at mariabenardis.com as well as greekalicious.com.au, and she's on Facebook and Instagram as well. She has a forthcoming memoir where she talks about a lot of the healing journey that she shared about today, and I'm really looking forward to reading that. You can also find me online at maurajames.com and on Instagram at maurajames and unbroken.chain. I wanted to give a shout out to the Inner Truth podcast with David Newell. He very sweetly had me on this week, and I didn't exactly know what we were going to talk about, but he wanted to talk about toad medicine, which I've talked about here in depth in the episode about Oso recently, Tapate Hutse. But it was nice to hear his perspective too, and to talk especially about the integration process and what some of the bigger takeaways have been for each of us. One thing that I didn't say that I just wanted to mention here is that I have become really aware of how I consume, and for me that means I don't eat animals anymore. I understand why people do, and it's obviously an individual choice, but that was just suffering that I felt like I couldn't participate in anymore, including the suffering for myself, the tax on my body. And I'm also pretty thoughtful about what I watch in that sense, what I consume, because I've become hyper aware of how what we intake through our senses really becomes the foundation of our being and what we output. And I'm also pretty protective of my consciousness and what I put my energy and focus into. So I want it to be things that teach me and that inspire me. When I catch myself using entertainment to numb myself and shut off, I take that as a pretty big indicator that I need to look at what in my life I'm trying to avoid and what I'm trying not to feel. Because for me in particular, that's a depressive tendency that indicates to me that something's out of alignment. And when I go to television or food in that way for comfort, it's not actually comforting me, it's taking me further away from the connection that I'm seeking. So my relationship to consuming has definitely shifted, and I also take responsibility for the fact that I'm still very complicit in a lot of suffering and a lot of really unjust systems. As a nomad, I drive a lot. I bought a car from a friend this spring, and I've put a lot of miles onto it. And in that way, I'm very much complicit in the suffering of many people and animals. And the choices we make happen in context. We live in 2019 in a Western culture, those of you that are listening to this, the growth that we do happens in context. And it really hit me recently when Oso, the medicine man in Connecticut, was saying that in Lakota culture for many thousands of years, if someone in the community started hoarding possessions and accumulating things in their teepee, that was considered a sign of disease, of mental unwellness, and that person would be brought into the lodge and healed because it meant that something was deeply wrong, that they had started to fear and prioritize objects over connection and spirit. So we don't live in a Lakota culture. All of us are very aware of the disconnection that's happening right now. And I just want to remind everyone who's dealing with both their own healing and the healing of our greater species that, yes, we have choice always. And yes, we are complicit. And that is one of the unique challenges and opportunities of being alive at this time and place in history. And it doesn't mean that anything's wrong. It's just part of the deal for this trip right now. All right. I love you. Be well out there. Thank you for being part of my web of connection and meaning. I'm really grateful that you're alive.
心の中で自分に叫ぼう